The Usynth uses an incredible piece of technology that makes it sound like this, like this, and like this. The original analog synths, like a Moog modular, used a limited set of basic waveforms like triangle, square, and saw. The idea was to take a rich waveform, like one of those, and subtract from it using a filter. When you hear all the variation and depth that exists amongst the different Usynth programs, it's kind of hard to imagine how you would accomplish that with just those basic waveforms. And that is because it's not possible. The Usynth expands on this original synthesis concept of subtractive synthesis in a pretty fascinating way that was only made possible with the advent of digital audio. Analog audio uses a circuit to create or represent a waveform. If I want to make an analog synth, I might start by making a circuit that outputs a saw wave. If I plug my circuit into a speaker, it will wiggle the speaker according to that saw wave pattern. The speaker will then wiggle the air, which will wiggle my ears and will wiggle my brain. Wow, but digital audio is different. It is not represented by an electronic circuit, but by a bunch of ones and zeros. In order to do this, it must break a sound down into many tiny little chunks. Computers take a bunch of little samples of the amplitude of a wave at a given moment and then play them back so quickly that we don't even notice the chunking. So if I want to make a saw wave oscillator in my computer, I represent that saw wave with a series of samples that draws out the shape of the saw wave. I can play it back at different speeds, and voila, I have a saw wave oscillator. It can then wiggle the speakers and the air and my ears much in the same way that the analog oscillator did. But now, if I'm going to draw out the shape of a saw wave oscillator, then why not just draw out any shape at all? Of course, I could use analog circuits to draw out different shapes, but with a digital oscillator, I can draw out millions of shapes. And it goes wavetable further than that. This concept that I can store any arbitrary waveform in my computer and play it back as an oscillator is the fundamental idea of wavetable synthesis. Now that I can draw and play back any shape I want, I can have any spectrum imaginable. But spectra in real life change over time. So what if I want to do that? Well, guess what, people? We are in luck. I can draw out a longer waveform and then choose only a portion of that waveform to play back at one time. And then I can modulate the window or that portion of the waveform that's being played back over time. And bam, I can have basically any spectrum in the entire world that you can imagine or I can imagine. Wow! This changing over time, by the way, is what distinguishes wavetable synthesis from sample synthesis or PCM synthesis, in case you were wondering. What's really crazy though, is that I can now reverse engineer sounds that are made with other types of synthesis using a wavetable. This patch, Fused FM, sounds obviously like an FM synth. But with wavetable, I can just reverse engineer the spectrum of the sound, how it changes over time, and then bam, Fused FM. This is how the Usynth is able to have so many unique synthesis styles so quickly accessible. You can go from super saw to voice synth to guitar in just a couple clicks. All of the wavetables and modulations are programmed by genius, world-class, big dome programmers, so that when you open up the Usynth, you can sound incredible right away. Not bad if you ask me. Goodbye. We are done.